Welcome back to Afia TV News Tonight Conversation segments. I am Anne Ugochinyere. And of course, today we are discussing regional specialization in agriculture for enhanced food security. Now, National Bureau of Statistics in Abuja in its recent report stated that October inflation rose to 33.88% compared to September, where it was 32.70%. And according to the Bureau, this is driven by increases in food and petrol prices. It also stated that food inflation climbed to 39.16% compared to the previous month, which is September. And somehow, the Central Bank of Nigeria Inflation Expectation Survey released earlier had forecast this inflation. Now, reacting to the reports, a former director of the Budgetary Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, Dr. Titus Okunromu, advised the federal government to encourage each of the 6 geopolitical zones to specialize in production of one specific food item to curb inflation. So tonight, we'll be discussing this in order to understand what foods can the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria produce and how very effective would this be, and will it really help to curb inflation? Also, how is this going to improve the living state of Nigerians at large? Joining me to discuss this is Dr. Ogbonna Nnadozie, an agricultural economist and director, Jodoan Umunne Elite Farms, Enugu. Good evening, Dr. Ogbonna, and welcome to tonight's discussion.
It's a pleasure, Anne, discussing this crucial topic with you on Afia TV.
You're welcome. So now, do you agree with Dr. Titus Okunromu's suggestion that each geopolitical zone in Nigeria should specialize in producing a specific food item? And of course, if you do, how might this approach impact local economies and national food security?
Yes, I agree with him, because it will encourage a cooperative advantage of production in the local economy and also increase the sustainable national food security.
Okay. Is regional specialization in agricultural production a viable strategy? Okay, and in order to boost food security and economic growth in Nigeria? And of course, we want to know what specific crops or food items should each geopolitical zones in Nigeria focus on, considering their unique climates and agricultural capabilities?
It is a viable strategy. And looking at specific crop and livestock, moving from northeast, north central, and northwest, where there are high potentials in cereal, legumes, pulses, and short duration upland rice, with fisheries and a wide range of other livestock like cattle and so on are possible. And within the Middle Belt region, that's within that Middle Belt, also have a very good potential for most agricultural production, as well as in southeast, southwest, and south-south, especially in root and tuber crops, cereals, legumes, pulse, and of course livestock like piggery, poultry, ruminant animals, fishery, and forestry products that are of great value in agricultural production and marketing chain.
Okay, so now the next thing is, how might this regional specialization in agriculture affect interstate trade and cooperation within Nigeria? And also, could this lead to increased competition or collaboration among the zones?
It will increase interstate trade and of course specialization, because cooperative cost advantage increases specialization, and I foresee competitiveness among the various geopolitical zones and collaboration.
Okay. So how might the federal government effectively support those regions to specialize in their specific agricultural products? Also, what role can the private sector play in this initiative?
The 3 tiers of government should strengthen irrigation facilities, extension services, provide rural infrastructure, and also create and establish innovative agricultural processes with adequate funding through the collaboration of Federal Ministry of Finance and Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, while private sectors should be supportive through public-private partnership window. With this, I believe the regional agricultural specialization will give us a high productivity.
Okay. Now, given the rise in inflation as reported by the National Bureau of Statistics, what other measures could the government implement to curb inflation, particularly in the food sector?
Government should encourage diversification in the non-oil sector of the economy by provision of soft loan to farmers, subsidized farm input, and mechanized agriculture to support export of agricultural products instead of just importing food items in addition to oil. Because with the current introduction of electric motor cars, there is expectation that oil prices worldwide will come down. So export from agriculture will give us a relief.
All right. So with food inflation reaching 39.16% in October 2024, what are the likely effects on low and middle income households in Nigeria?
This high inflation rate has resulted to low purchasing power, and this low purchasing power of food items will result to malnutrition and starvation of between 80 to 90% of the very low income and medium income household. Subsequently, death will result by increase of sickness with varying diseases. So we are into a very critical situation.
Okay. So what measures do you think can be taken to alleviate the impact of rising food inflation on low and middle income households in Nigeria?
The low income household may not be in a position and they don't have the capacity to purchase adequate food needs of their family, and this will also result in rising starvation and all its associated problems of malnutrition, death, and of course poor family health. These are negative impacts.
Okay. So if this trend should continue, how does the rising inflation rate affect consumer behavior, and what might be the long-term implication to the country and to the country's economy?
Well, the implication is that human resources will be low because the available labor for all different sectors of the economy will be low. And you discover that when productivity is low in other economic sectors, agriculture and the others will not give rise to an increase in gross domestic product of the country, which means our foreign exchange earning will reduce. Even to feed the nation, will also become problematic because of food insecurity and high prices of food. So these are the glaring issues of inflation in food and agricultural sector.
All right, let's talk about the role Central Bank of Nigeria will play in addressing this rising inflation rates, especially given the production from its inflation expectation survey.
Well, you discover that the central bank and federal government should reduce tax on agricultural products and machinery to encourage small and medium enterprises to import. They should also bring in these farm machineries for mechanized agriculture, create innovativeness in the processes of production, processing, packaging, marketing, and exporting of these agricultural crops, following international market standard, because there are standards for you for export crops which you must meet, and also to imbue agricultural businesses with insurance to reduce vagaries of weather and of course insecurity that are associated with agricultural production, especially under the trending climatic changes that varies in rainfall regime and pattern, sunshine duration, erosion problems, and of course which brings about crop diseases and pests that damages crop both in the field, in the store, and of course reducing the quality of output of agricultural products. So government should also try to encourage a specialized intervention funding in agricultural sector to reduce cost of farm inputs, to also increase supervisory rules in agricultural extension, and monitor implementation of whatever strategy and agricultural products that are now being sponsored by Central Bank of Nigeria. And they should also implement an agricultural export-oriented strategy to encourage more export on non-oil, which is agricultural sector. With this and creation of a rural infrastructure, it becomes easier for the small and medium enterprises in agriculture to produce, process, and package their product, and also benefit from a stabilized and sustainable agricultural market and value chain.
All right, so we want to know how effective have the monetary policies of the CBN been in managing inflation in recent years?
Well, looking at the statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics and that of other agencies, the effectiveness of its monetary policy is at crossroad, given the current rising exchange rate. More financing of the SME and provision of tax rebate and infrastructure to sustain export from Nigeria will do better to sustain these monetary policies.
Okay, so how might the rise in petrol prices contribute to overall inflation, and what strategies can be implemented to mitigate its impact on the economy?
Well, the petroleum price has really resulted to inflation in farm products, and you discover that if there is an increased cooperative advantage and collaboration among zones, and there are expectations that this effect of petroleum price increase will reduce. There should also be increased strategic grain reserve and sale at lower rate. This should be done by the 3 tiers of government, private sector organization, that is, the federal, state, and local government should be involved.
Okay. So considering the current inflation trends, what steps can be taken to stabilize Nigeria's economy and prevent further escalation of the inflation in the coming months?
Government should fund short-term farm activities, especially in livestock, fishery, dry season farming, and also try to release buffer stock from the strategic grain reserve. Meanwhile, you discover that the rain-fed agriculture has not been fed to Nigerian growing population. So government should integrate irrigation by revitalizing the river basin development authorities, especially to encourage all year-round production in agriculture in the various specific area of specialization and geopolitical zone in both crops and livestock.
Okay, so how might the global economic environment and supply chain distributions supply chain disruptions influence Nigeria's domestic inflation rates, particularly in the food sector?
Yes, you discover, for instance, that the Ukraine-Russia interface or war has really had a great effect on the supply of wheat and this substitute or composite products like flour to Nigeria. And this has resulted to the current hike in prices of bread and other associated confectionaries like cake, biscuit, etc. And you also discover that there are other products which Nigeria supply from the agricultural sector to this war-torn zone. Look at also Israel and the other Arab nations that are having a lot of crisis, warfare, killing people. This also has impact on the international trade between the various countries and Nigeria. So there's no good coming from the disruption or destructive marketing chains.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ogbonna Dozie, agricultural economist and director, Judan Umunne Elite Farms, Enugu. Thank you very much for joining me on this conversation tonight.
God bless you.
Yeah.
And
all right, to end the news, here's a recap of our major headlines. Enugu State government urges livestock farmers to embrace artificial insemination. On the national news, National Examination Council accredits schools in Niger, Equatorial Guinea for senior school certificate examination. In business, Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority assures travelers of smooth Yuletide season with increased airline capacity. And on the foreign scene, Congo landslide kills at least 9 people. Do remember to join us on all our social media handles at Afia TV Official. Many thanks for joining me. I am Anne Ugochinyere. Good evening and have yourself an interesting weekend.
check. It's 2 p.m. and it's time for us to vibe, chill,